The Lamborghini's engine roared through the quiet countryside as Xavier Daniels sped along the winding road, his mind racing faster than his luxury car. He just closed a $200 million real estate deal, transforming another neglected historical property into a five-star boutique hotel. At 32, his net worth had officially crossed the nine-figure mark, yet the victory felt hollow as the sunset painted the sky in colors that no one else would appreciate with him. Up ahead, Xavier noticed hazard lights blinking. As he approached, he saw a woman leaning against an older model Honda, frustration evident in her posture as she stared down at her phone. Any other day, he might have driven past his assistant would call that maintaining appropriate boundaries, but something made him ease his foot off the accelerator. "Need some help," Xavier called out after rolling down his window. Emma Turner looked up from her useless phone, no service, of course to find herself staring at possibly the most gorgeous car she'd ever seen in real life, driven by an equally impressive man. His dark hair was perfectly styled despite the convertible top being down, and his tailored suit screamed money. "Unless you're a mechanic disguised as a rich guy, I'm not sure you can help," she replied, gesturing toward the smoking hood of her car. "Something's definitely broken and my phone has 0 bars out here." Xavier pulled his car onto the shoulder and stepped out. "I know a thing or two about engines. Mind if I take a look?" Emma shrugged. "Be my guest. I was on my way back from photographing the Hartley wedding when it just died." She gestured to the camera equipment in her backseat. Xavier removed his suit jacket and rolled up the sleeves of his crisp white shirt. "You're a photographer." "That's what it says on my business cards," Emma smiled, watching as he confidently popped the hood. "I'm Xavier, by the way." "Xavier Daniels." He extended a hand that was unexpectedly calloused for someone driving such an expensive car. "Emma Turner," she replied, surprised by his firm handshake. "So what's your diagnosis, Dr. Daniels?" Xavier leaned over the engine, immediately spotting the issue. "Your timing belt snapped, not something that can be fixed roadside, unfortunately." Emma groaned. "Perfect, just perfect. I have another wedding tomorrow afternoon, and all my equipment is in this car." "Where are you headed?" Xavier asked, wiping his hands on a handkerchief he'd pulled from his pocket. "Oak Ridge, about 40 miles from here." Xavier nodded. "I can give you a lift. We can call a tow truck for your car on the way." Emma hesitated, eyeing the stranger and his obscenely expensive car. "That's really nice of you, but I couldn't impose, plus all my equipment." "It'll fit," Xavier said confidently, "and it's no imposition. I was just heading home with no particular plans." 20 minutes later, Emma found herself sitting in the butter-soft leather passenger seat of Xavier's Lamborghini, her camera equipment carefully secured in the tiny space behind their seats. The car purred along the country road as the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the hills. "So what kind of rich guy knows about timing belts?" Emma asked, unable to contain her curiosity any longer. Xavier laughed. "The kind who grew up working in his grandfather's auto repair shop before going into real estate development. Real estate, like selling houses. More like buying historical properties and renovating them into hotels and restaurants," Xavier explained. "Just closed a deal on an old mill in Portland today." Emma nodded, impressed despite herself. "That explains the fancy suit and car. And what about you? Wedding photography your main gig?" "For now," Emma said. "I do some freelance work for magazines too, but weddings pay the bills while I build my portfolio. I'd love to do more wildlife and landscape work eventually." As they drove through the darkness, Emma found herself increasingly comfortable with Xavier. He was surprisingly down to earth for someone so wealthy, asking thoughtful questions about her photography and listening attentively to her answers. By the time they reached Oak Ridge, Emma was reluctant for the ride to end. "This is me," she said as Xavier pulled up outside a modest apartment complex. "Thank you again for the rescue. You really saved me." "It was my pleasure," Xavier replied, helping her unload her equipment. "Listen, would it be completely inappropriate if I asked for your number?" "Maybe we could get coffee sometime." Emma hesitated only briefly before smiling. "I think that would be completely appropriate." The next morning, Xavier found himself standing in line at his usual coffee shop, unable to stop thinking about the photographer he'd rescued. Her direct manner and genuine passion for her work had been refreshing after years of dealing with people who either wanted something from him or were intimidated by his wealth. "The usual Mr. Daniels?" asked the barista. "Yes, thanks, Linda," Xavier replied, glancing at his watch. He had a meeting with his development team in 30 minutes to discuss their next project. His phone buzzed with a text message from Emma. "Thanks again for last night's rescue. My car is officially in the shop with a $1,500 repair bill. Ouch." Xavier smiled, quickly typing back. "All in a day's work for your friendly roadside millionaire. How's the wedding prep going?" Racing against the clock. "Client wants sunset shots at the vineyard, which means everything needs to be perfect in a 20-minute window." An idea formed in Xavier's mind. He knew the wedding venue Emma had mentioned. In fact, he'd almost purchased the property last year before the owner decided not to sell. Without overthinking it, he typed, "Need a second shooter? I've been told I have an eye for detail." Emma's response came quickly, "Are you serious?" "You know how to use a camera. I'm a man of many talents. Plus, I know the venue well, no pressure, just offering." There was a pause before her response appeared. "Actually, that would be amazing. My usual assistant canceled this morning. The wedding's at Rosewood Vineyard at 4 p.m. "But what about your real estate empire? It can survive without me for an afternoon." "See you at 3. Xavier couldn't explain why he'd just volunteered to spend his Saturday afternoon helping a woman he barely knew photograph a stranger's wedding. His business partner Marcus would think he'd lost his mind. But something about Emma had awakened a dormant part of him, the part that existed before spreadsheets and investor meetings had consumed his life. When Xavier pulled up to Rosewood Vineyard in casual clothes with a camera he hadn't used in years, Emma did a double take. "You actually showed up," she said, looking both surprised and relieved. "I said I would," Xavier replied simply. Emma handed him a shot list. "You really know how to use that thing, right?" Xavier adjusted his camera settings with practiced ease. "My grandfather wasn't just a mechanic. Photography was his passion. He taught me everything he knew before he passed away. Haven't had much time for it lately, though." For the next 5 hours, Xavier followed Emma's instructions, capturing candid moments while she handled the formal portraits. He found himself enjoying the work immensely, focusing on details that told the couple's story: the grandmother wiping away tears, the best man practicing his speech in a quiet corner, the flower girl twirling in her dress. As the sun began to set, Emma positioned the newlyweds against the vineyard backdrop. "This lighting is perfect," she murmured, snapping photo after photo. Xavier stood to the side, mesmerized not by the couple but by Emma's intense concentration and obvious talent. "Get some behind-the-scenes shots of Emma working," the bride called to Xavier. "She's amazing and we want to include those in our album," Xavier obliged, turning his lens toward Emma. Through his viewfinder, he saw her in a different light, her copper hair catching the sunset, her graceful movements as she directed the couple, the passion in her eyes as she checked each shot. Something shifted inside him as he pressed the shutter button. After the wedding, they sat on the vineyard's terrace, scrolling through their photos on Emma's laptop. "These are incredible, Xavier," Emma said, genuinely impressed. "I had no idea you were actually good. I thought you were just being nice." "I can be both nice and good at things," Xavier replied with a smile. "Though I'm definitely rusty. Haven't really done this since before my business took off." "Why not? You obviously have talent," Xavier considered the question. "Never enough time, I guess." "Always another deal to close, another property to acquire." "That sounds lonely," Emma observed, looking at him directly. No one had ever said that to him before. His friends envied his success. His family praised his accomplishments. But no one had ever suggested that the life he'd built might be missing something essential. "It can be," he admitted. "Today was the most fun I've had in years, actually." Emma closed her laptop. "Well, I owe you dinner at least, though probably not anywhere you're used to eating." "I know a place," Xavier said, "if you're up for it." He drove them to a small family-owned Italian restaurant in a neighborhood Emma had never visited. The owner greeted Xavier like an old friend, leading them to a quiet table in the back. "You own this place too?" Emma asked after they'd ordered. Xavier shook his head. "No, but I helped Mr. Rossi refinance when the bank was going to foreclose. His family's been running this restaurant for 3 generations. So you're not just a millionaire, you're a millionaire with a heart." "How refreshing," Emma teased. "I try to use my powers for good," Xavier replied with a self-deprecating smile. "What about you? Any tragic backstory that led you to photography?" Emma twirled pasta around her fork. "Nothing tragic. My dad gave me my first camera when I was 12. I just fell in love with freezing moments in time. There's something magical about capturing an expression or a feeling that would otherwise be gone forever." Their conversation flowed easily as they shared stories about their lives. Xavier found himself telling Emma things he rarely discussed about growing up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs, about the scholarship that got him through college, about his grandfather who had taught him the value of hard work and integrity. Emma, in turn, told him about her dreams of traveling the world taking photographs, of publishing a book of her work someday, and of the challenges of building a business in a competitive field. As Xavier drove Emma home, he realized he hadn't checked his phone once during dinner, something that never happened. His assistant had probably left dozens of messages about Monday's meetings. "I had a really nice time tonight," Emma said as they pulled up to her apartment. "Thank you for saving the day again." "I should be thanking you," Xavier replied. "You reminded me of something I'd forgotten." "What's that?" "That there's more to life than the next deal." He hesitated before adding, "I'd like to see you again, Emma, properly, on a real date." Emma smiled. "I'd like that too." Their first official date was the following weekend. Xavier took Emma to an art exhibition featuring local photographers. He'd done his research, learning that one of Emma's mentors had worked in the show. "How did you know?" Emma asked, genuinely touched that he'd gone to the effort. "I have my ways," Xavier replied mysteriously. As they wandered through the gallery, Xavier found himself seeing the photographs through Emma's eyes, appreciating details he might have otherwise missed. Later, over dinner at another of his favorite hidden gems, Emma challenged his perspectives in ways no one had in years. "But why focus solely on luxury properties?" she asked. "With your resources, you could develop affordable housing that actually helps communities." Instead of being defensive, Xavier found himself intrigued by her viewpoint. "I've considered it, actually. The margins are smaller, but the impact would be greater." "Exactly. You could still make money while making a difference." By the time he dropped her off that night, Xavier knew he wanted to see her again. And again after that, over the following weeks, they fell into a comfortable rhythm. Xavier would pick Emma up after she finished a photography session, or Emma would meet him at one of his properties under development. She began bringing her camera to document his projects, capturing the transformation of historic buildings in ways that told their stories. "These are remarkable," Xavier said one evening as they looked through photos Emma had taken of his latest hotel renovation. "You've captured exactly what we're trying to achieve." "I can see your vision," Emma replied. "It's not just about making money, you're preserving history while giving it new life." 1 month after they met, Xavier invited Emma to his home for the first time. She'd known he was wealthy, but the reality of his lifestyle still took her breath away. His house was a modernist masterpiece perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean, all glass and steel and spectacular views. "This is where you live?" Emma asked as he gave her a tour. "Alone, it's just me," Xavier confirmed, "and a housekeeper who comes in 3 times a week." Emma wandered through the minimalist space. "It's beautiful, but what? It doesn't feel lived in. There are no personal touches." Xavier looked around as if seeing his home for the first time. She was right. Despite the expensive furniture and carefully curated art, there was nothing that spoke to who he was as a person. "I'm rarely here," he admitted. "Usually just to sleep." Emma stopped in front of a wall of windows overlooking the ocean sunset. "You have this incredible view and you're never here to enjoy it," Something about her question struck Xavier deeply. He had built this house as a symbol of his success, but he hadn't created a home. "Maybe I need someone to enjoy it with," he said quietly, moving to stand beside her. Emma turned to face him, the sunset casting a golden glow across her features. "Is that an invitation?" "It could be," Xavier replied, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "If you're interested." Their first kiss was tentative, a gentle exploration that quickly deepened into something more passionate. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "I've wanted to do that since I saw you taking photos at that wedding," Xavier admitted. "I've wanted you to do that since you fixed my car," Emma replied with a smile. That night changed everything between them. As summer turned to fall, Emma became a fixture in Xavier's life. She brought warmth and spontaneity to his regimented existence, while he provided stability and support for her growing business. Xavier set up a darkroom in one of his spare bedrooms, encouraging Emma to experiment with traditional film photography alongside her digital work. Emma, in turn, helped Xavier rediscover his passion for photography, accompanying him on weekend trips to capture landscapes that reminded him of adventures with his grandfather. "You should display these," Emma suggested one evening as they reviewed photos Xavier had taken during a hike. "They're really good. Where would I put them?" Emma gestured around his still sterile living room. "Everywhere. This place needs your personality, Xavier." Slowly, his house began to transform. Photos appeared on walls, books accumulated on shelves, and comfortable throws replaced the designer pillows that had been selected by his decorator. Emma didn't officially move in, but more and more of her belongings migrated to his home. Their relationship wasn't without challenges. Xavier's work often demanded long hours and travel, while Emma's wedding schedule meant she was busiest on weekends. They learned to communicate through these obstacles, finding creative ways to stay connected even when physically apart. 4 months into their relationship, Xavier invited Emma to accompany him to New York for a major real estate conference. "It's not the most exciting event," he warned, "but afterward we could take a few days to explore. You could photograph the city." Emma hesitated. "I don't know, Xavier. I have a wedding that weekend and it's a big client." "I understand," Xavier said, trying to hide his disappointment. "Work comes first, does it though?" Emma asked, studying his expression. "Is that really what you believe?" The question caught Xavier off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean you work 60-hour weeks building an empire that you never take time to enjoy. You have this gorgeous house with views most people would kill for, but before we met, you barely spent any time there." "That's not fair," Xavier protested. "I've worked hard to get where I am." "I know you have," Emma said gently. "But at what cost? When was the last time you did something just because it made you happy, not because it added to your bottom line?" Xavier wanted to argue, but found he couldn't. Before Emma, his life had been an endless cycle of deals and acquisitions, each success immediately forgotten as he moved on to the next challenge. "I'm not trying to change you," Emma continued. "I admire your drive and your success. But I've watched you come alive these past months when you're taking photographs or exploring somewhere new. That light in your eyes is what I fell in love with." Xavier froze. "What did you just say?" Emma's eyes widened as she realized what had slipped out. I said I love the light in your eyes." "No, you said you fell in love with it." Xavier moved closer to her. "Did you mean that?" Emma took a deep breath. "Yes, I'm in love with you, Xavier." Which is terrifying because we come from completely different worlds, and I have no idea if Xavier silenced her with a kiss. "I love you too," he whispered against her lips. "And you're right. I've been living to work instead of working to live. That changes now." The next day, Xavier shocked his executive team by announcing he was restructuring the company's leadership. He would remain as chairman, but was stepping back from day-to-day operations to focus on strategic initiatives, including a new affordable housing division inspired by Emma's suggestion. "Are you sure about this?" Emma asked when he told her. "Running your company is who you are." "No," Xavier corrected her. "It's what I do." Who I am is the man who stops to help when he sees a broken-down car, the man who remembers the joy of looking through a viewfinder. The man who's falling more in love with you every day. Emma's wedding client agreed to move the ceremony up by one day, allowing her to accompany Xavier to New York. The conference was as dry as expected, but watching Xavier give the keynote speech about ethical development and community investment made Emma's heart swell with pride. Afterward, they spent 3 days exploring the city, Xavier showing Emma his favorite hidden spots while she photographed everything that caught her eye. On their last evening, Xavier took Emma to the top of the Empire State Building. "I have something for you," he said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "It's not what you think," he added quickly when Emma's eyes widened. Inside the box was a key. "What's this for?" Emma asked. "It's the key to a studio space I leased. It's downtown, has great natural light and plenty of room for you to work and display your photographs. I thought you might be ready to expand beyond weddings." Emma stared at the key in disbelief. "Xavier, I can't accept this. It's too much." "It's an investment in your talent," Xavier insisted. "You've helped me rediscover what matters. Let me help you pursue your dreams too." Tears filled Emma's eyes. "You're incredible, you know that. Most guys give flowers or jewelry, but you give studio space." "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes to the studio," Emma clarified, "and to us." 6 months after Xavier stopped to help Emma on that country road, they stood together at the grand opening of her first gallery show. The space was filled with her photographs, landscapes, portraits, and street scenes that told stories of human connection. In one corner, a special exhibition featured Xavier's photographs, which had surprised the art community with their sensitivity and technical skill. "I can't believe how many people came," Emma whispered to Xavier as they surveyed the crowded room. "I can," Xavier replied. "Your work speaks to people. I knew it would." As the evening wound down, Xavier led Emma to a quiet corner where a single photograph hung, the one he'd taken of her at the wedding, bathed in golden light as she worked. Beside it was a small velvet box, similar to the one he'd given her in New York but smaller. "Xavier?" Emma questioned, her heart racing. This time, when he opened the box, it contained a ring of vintage emeralds surrounded by diamonds. "It was my grandmother's," Xavier explained as he dropped to one knee. "Emma Turner, you changed my life the moment your car broke down on that road. You've helped me remember who I am beyond my bank account. Will you marry me?" Emma's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered as he slipped the ring onto her finger. 1,000 times yes. Their wedding was a small affair held at Rosewood Vineyard, where they had worked together that first day. Xavier's business partners were shocked to see the focused, driven developer so relaxed and joyful, while Emma's friends marveled at how the couple balanced each other perfectly. 1 year after their first meeting, Emma and Xavier sat on the deck of their home, now truly a home, filled with photographs, books, and mementos of their adventures together. Emma's photography business had expanded to include commercial work for several major magazines, while Xavier's new affordable housing division had just broken ground on its first development. "You ever think about how different our lives would be if my car hadn't broken down that day?" Emma asked, her head resting on Xavier's shoulder as they watched the sunset. "Sometimes," Xavier admitted. "I was so focused on chasing the next deal, the next million, I might never have slowed down enough to see what was missing." Emma smiled, placing his hand on her slightly rounded belly. "Well, things are about to slow down even more," Xavier's eyes widened. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I am," Emma confirmed. "We're having a baby." As Xavier pulled his wife into his arms, overwhelmed with joy, he reflected on how a simple act of kindness on a country road had led to the richest life he could imagine, one that had nothing to do with his millions and everything to do with love.